إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى أهله ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. We give praise and thanks to Almighty Allah. We ask Him to shower His blessings upon the noblest of mankind, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, members of his household, his companions, all those who have stood, are standing, and will come to stand on this path of Al-Sirat al-Mustaqim till the day of Qiyam. Alhamdulillah. We would just like to give a short talk on riba and give one or two examples on it so that we might be aware, take the necessary precautions. With respect to riba, there are different forms of entering the door of riba. Usually, when the scholars talk about riba, they define them into two types of riba. Now, these two types of riba, there are many doors that lead to them. The two types of riba are riba al-fadl and riba al-nasi'ah. Riba al-fadl is to give fadl. Fadl is favor. Fadlullah, mathalan. So the favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So riba al-fadl is to give favor to something that is riba producing over another thing within its category that is also riba producing. For instance, you have a certain type of dates that are eaten, and it's of a species that is in high demand, that is held in high esteem, that is given fadl to. You now have another date that is of low quality. So you want to exchange one for the other. So you can take 2 sa' of the low quality date and exchange it for 1 sa' of the high quality dates. So you've given quality, and you've given favor in terms of quantity to the high quality dates. So this is an example of riba al-fadl. Riba al-fadl. This is haram in the Sharia. This is haram in the Sharia. So what do we do? What the Sharia permits is that you sell the low quality dates for cash, and you use the cash to buy the high quality dates. Then one will be free from riba in this case. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Al-dhahab بالذهب والفضة بالفضة والبر بالبر والشعير بالشعير والتمر بالتمر والملح بالملح مثلا بمثل. uh, on this the Prophet ﷺ said الذهب بالذهب. Dhahab, gold, should be exchanged for the same quantity of gold. والفضة بالفضة. Silver should be exchanged for the same quantity of silver. والبر بالبر. Wheat should be exchanged for the same quantity of wheat. والشعير بالشعير. And barley should be exchanged for the same quantity of barley. But tamar with tamar, dates should be exchanged for the same quantity of dates. والملح بالملح. And salt should be exchanged for the same quantity of salt. مثلا بمثل. Like for like, i.e. in the same category that is riba producing, you exchange them for the same quantity of that thing that is riba producing. Sawa'an bi sawa'in, quantity for quantity. Yaddan bi yaddin. You should do the transaction of things that involve riba at the same sitting, hand to hand. وإذا اختلفت هذه الأصناف, if these things differ, they are of different categories. فبيعوها كيف شئتم. Then sell them as you wish. إذا كان يدا بيد. If you're going to do the transaction at one sitting, hand to hand. So these items that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned: gold, silver, wheat, barley, dates, salts. These 6 items, they are riba producing. The scholars agree on them being, all the scholars agree on them being riba producing. Some of the scholars now, in addition to these general ijma of the scholars, go into why they are riba producing and therefore add other things to them. So for instance, the first 4 are food items. So some of the scholars say food items are sorry, the first 2, the last 4 are food items. The first 2 are currencies, gold and silver. These are the original currencies. So therefore, the last 4 are food items. So therefore, these scholars add food items to them. So the scholars say not only that they are food items, but they are storable food items, going by the storage methods that existed during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they add all storable food items to them. Some of the scholars say no, they are measurable food items. So food items that are measured by weight and measured by volume during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that is the normal way of measuring them for sale, that they are included as riba producing. So things like vegetables, things like watermelons will not therefore be included because they are sold as units or bunches. In the case of vegetables, units in the case of watermelons. So therefore, they say they are not weighed either by volume or by weight and are therefore not included in this. So this is just an explanation on that. Riba al-Fadl. This is it. For riba and nasi'a, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in a hadith, in the Muwatta of Imam Malik, عن زيد بن أسلم, from Zayd ibn Aslam, أنه قال, that he said, كان الربا في الجاهلية, said in the days of ignorance before Islam, the type of riba and nasi'a that was practiced then, يكون للرجل على رجل حق, is that a man will have a right upon another man in terms of a loan that he had given to him. The creditor has money with the debtor, ila ajalin, to be paid back at a specific time. فَإِذَا حَلَّ الْحَقِّ, when the time to pay back arrives, قال, the creditor will say to the debtor, أَتَقْضِي أَوْ تُرْبِي, will you pay up or will you increase? Will you pay up what you owe me, or do you want an extension of time and therefore increase what you owe me? What you owe me will increase. There'll be an interest upon it. فَإِنْ قَضَاهُ أَخَذَ مِنْهُ, if he pays up, the creditor, if the debtor pays up, the creditor will accept it from him. وَإِلَّا زَادَهُ فِي حَقِّهِ, if he doesn't pay up, then you'll pile up an interest on what he owes. You'll increase what is to be paid back to him. وَأَخَّرَ عَنْهُ الْأَجَلِ, and he will delay the payback time. So this is what Zayd bin Aslam reported in Imam al-Malik's work al-Muwatta. So these are the types of riba, generally speaking. Now, alhamdulillah. With this understood, let us now look at a type of riba, or a type of riba transaction which is haram, that is popular. Now, before we even go there, the main reason why riba and nasi'a is prohibited is because it's an exchange of money for money. Somebody is giving somebody money as a loan and is collecting back money after a period of time. And the only thing that has passed isn't that work has taken place. No, the only thing that has passed is time. So for this passage of time, the person wants to collect an increment. He wants to collect an increment. So we'll look at bay al-aina. Is a type of transaction. Aina, the scholars have different opinions with regards to the origin of aina. We'll just choose one of them. Some say it is because it is that it refers collectively, it's a group name for gold, silver, and any other form of cash, of currency that the people use. Some say that it refers to ain, the object that is being transacted in this type of transaction, because that object returns to the original person who sold it. So it is named after that. So let's, for the purpose of the discourse, let's go with that former. Anyone go with is okay, but let's go with that, with the latter of the two definitions of the scholars on it. So the question here is asked, what is meant by inner transaction? Inner transactions means to sell something for a price to be paid at a later date, then to buy it back at a lower price to be paid immediately. To better understand it, you go to a store, for instance, and they're selling phones, and you say, sell me your phone. I want to buy your phone on the condition that I'll pay in installments. I won't pay right now. I'll spread it over maybe 12 months. And the person agrees. The seller agrees. Then on the spot, you sell it to the seller. After getting the phone, you sell it back to him. You may or may not even get the phone. You may or may not even bother to collect the phone from him. You sell it back to him at a lower price. So perhaps you bought it originally at, let's say, 100. Then you sell it back to him at 80, and he gives you that 80 right there and there. And the transaction is concluded. This transaction, the phone goes back to the original owner, and therefore it is named Bay'u al-Aina. It is the object of transaction can be anything, and that object of transaction is just used as a placeholder, as an excuse to involve in riba, as an excuse to involve in riba and say that one is not involved in riba, that one is involved in trade. And this is what the kuffar said, and Allah reported in the Quran. He said, إِنَّمَا الْبَيْعُ مِثْلُ الرِّبَى. He said, trade and riba, they are the same. It's the same thing. There's no difference. And Allah says, وَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ riba. Allah permitted trade, but made riba haram. So this is Bay'u al-Aina, just saying one of the ways that people go into one of the forms of riba that we started out with in the beginning, which is riba and nasi'a. This is one of the ways that people go into it. Bay'u al-Aina. It's called Bay', which is a transaction, a sale, that is Aina. So in actuality, it is called a Bay', a sale, a transaction, but it is riba. There's no business going on there. It is exchange of money for money. It is basically the seller saying, take 80 and give me back 100, spread over 12 months. That is a transaction in the eyes of the Sharia. So you're putting a phone there, you're putting a car there, you're putting whatever there, does not change that fact in the eyes of the Sharia. In fact, if anything, it makes it even worse. The one who engages in riba clean and neat and doesn't hide the fact that he's engaging in riba is committing a grave sin, but is committing one sin. But the one who labels it as trade, إنما البيع مثل الربا, who says that it is a type of the riba is just like trade, or this particular transaction is trade, then involves in another level trying to fool Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يُخَادِعُونَ اللَّهَ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. But you cannot fool Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, you can fool الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. So three things here. He's engaging in riba. He is attempting to fool Allah, albeit an unsuccessful attempt. And three, he successfully fools many of those who believe and don't want to involve themselves in riba, but they go along with him in the transaction. So this is Bay' al-Aina. It says what this ultimately means is that the buyer acquires cash and will pay back a higher amount after a while. So it is as if it is a loan in the form of a sale. In Mawsu'at al-Fiqhiyya, there are several definitions of Aina that is forbidden, the most well-known of which is the sale of an item for a certain price to be paid at a later date. Then the same item is bought back for cash for a lower price. At the end of the specified period, the buyer pays the first price. That is the installment period. He pays the first price. The difference between the two prices is riba for the first seller, and the whole transaction boils down to lending 10 and getting back 15. So the sale is a means to engage in riba. End of quote. So what follows is just a further details about this. So we'll move on from that. Now, another thing apart from riba that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibited, and there are many things in respect to trade and interpersonal transactions, business transactions that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibited. We can't go through all of them. We're just trying to go through a minuscule few. And one of them is having more than one transactions in one, engaging in a transaction that engaging in a transaction that is premised on another transaction or more. So Jabd Amr ibn Shu'aib, the grandfather of Amr ibn Shu'aib, narrated that Naha Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam an bay'ain fi bay'in safqatin wahida. The Prophet said that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam prohibited that one should engage in two transactions in one. That is, in between one transaction, between one deal. Now, so this hadith was authenticated by Imam al-Albani. Now, and the hadith is rated as Hasan. Also, Sheikh al-Albani in Sahih al-Nasa'i, he rated it as Hasan Sahih. Now, the hadith is originally in the compilation of Musnad Abu Dawud, also in Jami al-Tirmidhi, Sunan al-Nasa'i, and the وَاللَّفْظُ لَهُمَا, and the exact wordings that were read out in Tirmidhi and An-Nasa'i. Now, and also in Ahmad, a fuller version of the hadith resides there. So having two transactions in one, I will sell once you engage in a couple of two or more transactions, and we premise them on one on the other. That I will sell this to you if you will also buy another thing from me. That is, we specify those things. Or I will sell this to you if you will sell something from you to me. Or I will sell this to you if you will rent that from me. Any form of transaction doesn't have to be sale alone. So that I will engage in this transaction. I will engage in this transaction with you if you will engage in another transaction with me. This is also prohibited. So with this, we'll move to the next thing, which is sukuk. Now, sukuk is a word that has become very popular, and it is an Arabic word. Originally, it's said to have been a Persian word. And when Islam spread to those areas, it was assimilated into the Arabic language. So, and the meaning generally, was retained. It means a couple of things. Sok is the singular, while sukuk is the plural. Sok will mean to heat, and that is the foundational meaning. The Arabic language is a conceptual language. What you need is a concept. The application from one context to other can now have different meanings. So heating is the primary thing. So for instance, in in the Quran, in Surah Al-Dhariyat, when the angels came to Ibrahim alayhi salam and gave him the glad tidings of the son, Surah Al-Dhariyat, verse 29. So after giving him the glad tidings of the son, his wife came. Allah says, فَأَقْبَلَتِ امْرَأَتُهُ فِي صَرَّةٍ. That his wife, approached with, shouting, with a cry, letting out a cry. فَصَكَّتْ وَجْهَهَا. And she hit her own, face in astonishment. وَقَالَتْ عَجُوزٌ عَقِيمٌ. Will that happen? Meaning I'm going to be the one that will bear that child, whilst I am Ajuz, an old lady, Aqim, run out of fertility, not fertile. So Sakkat was used there. Sak, the singular of Sukuk. So with the primary meaning, which is to hit. Now it's also used for an agreement, a trade agreement or any other form of agreement, because ordinarily when you do this, you clasp your hands together, like you hit your hands together that a deal has been struck. Also, it means a document that documents a deal. So if the deal is two hands clasping together, hitting each other, then the document that represent that deal that took place also carries that name in that concept. So this is with respect to the name. Now, because something has an Arabic name doesn't mean it is halal automatically. Neither does it mean it is haram automatically. It is the definition that matters. Oftentimes, when you go to some Islamic banks, they will engage in riba transactions and they will name the interest, profits. They'll say, this transaction, we're going to engage in it with a profit margin of 5%. It is, by the time you go into it, they're going to give you a loan and you're going to pay back that principal plus a profit margin of 5%. So there's nothing that profit margin means other than interest rate. So they've turned interest rate to profit margin. So the name is not what matters. What matters is the meat, the meaning of the transaction, the details of the transaction. Now, so with that, we go to the types of sukuk. There are two types of sukuk. After having understood Bay'ul Ina, that you have a placeholder there, an imposter trying to mask an imposter product, trying to mask the riba transaction, trying to make it look like a business, a legitimate Sharia compliant business transaction. Now, in terms of sukuk, they are halal sukuk and they are haram sukuk. So one type of thing that distinguishes them, or one type of categorization, is an asset-based sukuk and an asset-backed sukuk. In the asset-based sukuk, you have a placeholder there. You have a placeholder there as a product that is exchanging hands. It is either not exchanging hands at all, or it exchanges hands in an illusionary fashion. Whereas in the asset-backed one, there's an actual product there that exchanges hands in the normal fashion that products exchange hands when a sale is made. So the first difference, so this assets-based one is haram, and the asset-backed one is halal. All other things being halal. Now, so the first is the source of payments in this type of sukuk. Where does if you're an investor, the returns that come to you, where do they come from? In the haram one, it comes from the originator of the sukuk. Usually, it can be a government entity that sells, that sets up the sukuk. So they are called the originator. The originator will set up a special purpose vehicle, a company that will administer the sukuk. So the originate in this asset-based transaction, a sukuk, your source of revenue will come from that government, for instance. Whereas in the asset-backed, the revenue generated is from the material, the assets that has changed hands, that has been sold, that has been bought. So for instance, if you bought a piece of property and that is what you bought sukuk on, or a piece of land or whatever, and the sukuk sold shares in that land or that property, and you have a portion, a share of that, the sukuk certificate that you have is proof that you have ownership shares in ownership interest in that property. So that property, if it is sold or rented out or leased out, the income that is generated from that, you will have a share of that. So it is that asset, that property that is generating income. So based on market forces, the income can increase, it can come down, it can stay the same. Second, presentation disclosure of the assets. In the asset base, the asset remains on the originator's balance sheet. Whereas in the asset backed, the asset is separated from the originator's balance sheet. It is moved to the balance sheet of the SPV, the company that is set up to by the originator or by the government in this case, in this example, to oversee the sukuk process. Number three, the sukuk holder's ownership. In the asset-based, what you truly, in reality, have is beneficial ownership. There are three rights of a civil, transaction. You can have the rights to use the property. That is called usus. You can have the right to use the benefits of the property. That is called fructus, from fruits. Usus is from use. So for instance, there's a car, you can drive it. That is using it. Then you can also rent it out. That is benefiting from the fruits, benefiting from the proceeds of that car. So combining those two, rights, they're called usufruct. Then there is abusas, from abuse, meaning you have the right to destroy the property if you want, consume it if you want, sell it if you want, gift it out if you want. So it is only when you have abusas that you are the true owner of the product. Then you combine all these three rights. So in the case of the assets based, because the transaction the assets did not change hands in the first place or change hands in an illusionary fashion, you do not have the right to abuse us. You do not have the right to, sell the products, the assets. You can sell your sukuk, certificate to someone else, but you can't sell all the people who own the sukuk certificate, for instance, can come together and say, we are going to sell this property. It will not happen. So that's where you know that it is the first to usufruct that you have. It is not, abusas is not one of the things that you have. Whereas in legal ownership of in the asset backed, you have legal ownership of the product. You have legal ownership of the product. You can sell the product. All the people that own the sukuk can come together and sell the product that changed hands, that was bought, that that they own shares in via the sukuk certificate that they bought. That is when you know that you truly have, ownership in that product. Then, if anything were to happen, your recourse, the only thing you can rely on in the assets, in the asset-based sukuk, which is haram, is the originator of the sukuk. That originator also doubles as your obligator. Your obligator is the person who pays you your proceeds, your income that comes in. Whereas in the halal sukuk, the asset-backed sukuk, whatever is generated by the asset is what you have recourse to. The property that you own shares in is what you have recourse to. It is what it produces that you get as income. And the assets base, it is not the property that produces the income in reality. It may be, like in the case of Baylaina, made to look otherwise, but in reality, it is the originator who is the obligator that gives you money for that gives you your income that you generate from partaking in that transaction. Then the Sharia nomination, i.e., the verdict of the Sharia on this. The asset-based, the asset-based sukuk, which is haram, involves bayul adain. You are involving in debt. You are buying debt. In reality, when you invest in such, you are loaning in the example, you're using a government, you are loaning the government money, and that government will pay you back. And in between paying you back exactly what you own, they will give you some payments in between. They can call it whatever name that they want to call it. So what you have done is a neat riba transaction in one sense. Then you have also done a non-neat riba transaction, bay'ul aina. We described bay'ul aina initially, because instead of coming out and saying, this is bonds that we are selling. Bonds is where the government sells you a promissory note, bond certificate, and says, give us money. You give them money, and they will pay you back what you gave them plus interest. Instead of saying that, they now say that this is a Sharia compliant, transaction. Some of the governments do that, not even knowing the meat of this belief, because there are, scholars who, modern day scholars, who will give them, fatwas. I mean, there's hardly a Sharia compliant product, except that the company that is selling that product has a Sharia board. So they might look to these Sharia boards, and it might be a case where they actually know, and they go for the Sharia boards that will give them the fatwa that they're looking for. So that is another one. Whereas the case of the asset-backed, it is halal. It is halal now. So this is you know uh, and a brief summary of the difference between asset-backed and asset-based. Asset-backed, which is halal, asset-based, which is haram, types of sukuk. So from there, we'll move to the next thing, which is an example, uh, the federal government of Nigeria sukuk offering. So the uh, the subscription, the offer for subscription says that the federal government of Nigeria sukuk offer for subscription pursuant to the Local Loans Act. So the foundation of this is a loans, act. A special, sukuk act was not made for this, but this is, a loans act. On the authority of the government of Nigeria, they set up a company, which they should. The reason why they set up a company is to make sure that if anything happens to the government, or most likely in the case, or more likely rather, in the case of a company that is also selling sukuk. It's not only governments that sell sukuk. If something were to happen to that company, then because the asset has been turned over, the assets that upon which the sukuk transaction revolves around has been turned over to this company that was set up by this second company that was set up for that purpose, then other people that the company that is now in trouble owes money will not be able to access the assets under the new company that has been set up. So you could have a company setting up different sukuk companies for different people, or different sets of people. So the assets in each of those sukuk companies will be protected for the people that have shares in it, in that particular company. So even if the parent company that set up those sukuks were to run into trouble, it will not affect those, those sukuk companies. Now, so over there, then this is the SPV, the sukuk company. Then you can get your subscription, as they say, from these, from any of these three major banks that are offering the subscription, that the government is offering the subscription through them. Now, the government is offering for 2023, they are requiring 150 billion naira. And they want 150 billion naira from the investors. They are going to invest in the sukuk. They want to hold on to that 150 billion naira for 10 years under a transaction that is called Ijara Sukuk. Ijara means rental or lease. Like you have a house or property, any other type of property, and somebody leases it for a period of time. So, and they would pay you back this 150 billion in October 2033, 10 years. And there is going to be a rental rate of 15.75% per annum. This 15.75% is going to be a percentage of how much you, the investor, invest in the sukuk. So, of course, it cannot be 50, that each person that invests gets 15.75% or 15 billion. That's not possible in any shape or fashion. Even if it was 10%, that means it will be 15 billion that each person will get. By the time you spread that around 10 people, the whole thing that was invested is gone. So it's 15.75% of how much you invested. And in the next document that we'll look at, that was actually clearly stated, there. So it opens in October, on October 3rd, and closes on this. So let's go on from that. So they said the minimum, each share will cost, each Sukuk share will cost 1,000 naira, and the minimum that you can buy is 10 shares, which would mean you have to part with 1,000 times 10,000 naira. You will receive every 6 months the rental rate that the FGN, the Nigerian government, promised. You get that half yearly every 6 months, and you redeem the amount that you gave them. The total of 150 billion will be given back to the investors in the share that they bought, as a lump sum at the end of the transaction, which is 2033. Now, so this is this is it. So this is a summary in the subscription offer of in the subscription offer of what people are going to invest in, what people are going to invest in. Now, so let's go to the next now. So this is a detailed document. This is a detailed document that spells out. There's a 128 page document where is the prospectus of the Sukuk that spells out, the whole thing in details. So the first 72 pages are the things where the meat, or the things that concern the Sharia ruling on the Sukuk, where they reside. So for this, we've highlighted points. So on page 5, the points of interest. So on page 5, allocated land. The land designated as federal highways transferred to the issuer or the trustee by the federal government of Nigeria. So what happens is that at the beginning, before the investors come in at all, the government sets up the SPV, the special vehicle that will handle the company, the Sukuk company that will special vehicle that will handle special purpose vehicle. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. SPV that will handle the Sukuk process. So this company is the company that will sell the shares. So at the beginning, the governments, they want to use this Sukuk to build roads and to repair roads, to build new roads that are non-existent and to repair existent, damaged roads, or upgrade, those roads. So at the beginning, before the investors come in, the government will sell its land to the SPV, either the existing road that needs upgrade or the or the bare land that needs a road to be constructed on it. So this is called allocated lands. The land designated as federal highway transferred to the issuer. The issuer is the SPV that issues the Sukuk certificates to investors ultimately. It is also called the trustee. It is the one trusted to manage the Sukuk. It is set up by the federal government. So now this will now look at, is this an asset base? This asset is the land. So the asset here in this transaction is the land. So is it asset based or is it asset backed? We'll see here that it's asset based because there is a transfer of assets, as it says here. The land is designated as federal highways transferred to this Sukuk company that is going to be owned by the investors. But as we'll see later on, this land is going to be sold back at the initial cost price to the government. So we know it's 150 billion that the government is looking for. At the end of the project, 2033, the government is going to buy back that land for the same 150 billion. So we see that is a transfer actually took place, but it is illusionary. It's like I say, sell me your phone. If I say sell me your phone for, let's say, 100, and I'll sell it back to you immediately at 100, nobody will take that transaction serious. Nobody engages in such transactions ordinarily because there's no benefit to be earned thereby. I sell it to you, I give you myself, and you sell it to me, I give you 100, and immediately I'm giving you're giving me 100 to get the phone back. So what benefit is to be served? There's no benefit to be served. But what if I say we'll do the same transaction, but it won't be immediately? We'll create a space between it. You sell me your phone. So an asset has changed hand. I will pay you back in 12 months. And I will pay you back. It's going to be the same price. Then you say, okay, what's the need for me? Within the 12 months, I will rent out, and within the 12 months, I will rent out the phone to you. Then you see that there's benefit to be gotten for me in this transaction, because the sale price at both ends of the transaction is the same, but there's a rental price in between. So instead of saying that I will loan you a certain amount, the principal, and at the end of the day, I'll get back that principal in 12 months. But in between, you will give me an increment, interest. Instead of instead of saying that, I put a placeholder there, which is the phone that was transacted, and I name the transaction in between as a rental. So this is Bay'u al-Aina. Let us go on. So we know the assets that has changed hands here. Construction agency agreement. The agreement between the issuer, that is the company set up to administer the sukuk, the SPV, and the federal government of Nigeria, in which the issuer authorizes the FGN to select contractors to develop the lease asset on behalf of the issuer. So this is a transaction. The government owns the land. It sells the land to the SPV and tells the SPV to develop that land. That I'm selling this land to you so that you go and develop the land. Then the SPV goes back to, in the same sitting, the same transaction, goes back to the government and say, I am contracting you to go and look for the contractors. With the money that I paid you for this land, I am commissioning you to go and look for contractors that will construct the road, and you pay them from that money that I've given to you. Nobody will accept this transaction outside of something designed like this. If you are a contractor, for instance, and the your client says, okay, we want you to build this road for us. Okay, how much are you going to charge and stuff like that, or for this amount? So you agree on the price. Okay, so they now say, they give you the money. Now say, the money you have to give it back to us and commission us to go and look for contractors that will do the job. And you say, but I'm a contractor. So what's in it? What is going to be in it for me? So this is another thing, that is wrong with the, transaction. Dissolution date. The date on which the FGN will purchase the roads in accordance with the purchase undertaken. So the government is going, that road, why it's illusionary is going to be sold at the beginning in 2023. In 2033, that road is going to be sold back to the government at the same price that it was sold initially. It's going to be purchased back by the government at the same price that the government sold it initially. So it's just an illusion. The meat of this transaction is what happens between 2023 and 2033. So what you end up seeing is that you see the arrangement of halal transactions, independently halal transactions, in a format that makes it haram. So the lessee, the government, the FGN of federal government of Nigeria is the lessee, is the owner of the land. It's the one that sold the land to the private company that it set up, and it is also the one that is leasing the land from the company that it set up. It is also the agents of that company that is set up to go and look for and pay contractors to construct the road. The road that it's told that special purpose vehicle company, that's Sukuk company, to construct. The lessor is the SPV, that special purpose vehicle, that Sukuk company. So you see, the government is having so many hats, and previously here, another thing that is wrong with this transaction is that it is multiple transactions in one. We talked over here about two transactions in one. نهى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن بيعين في بيع واحد. And Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم prohibited two transactions in one. These are multiple transactions in one. So when you're signing those documents, when that SPV is signing those documents, is signing a sales document. It's going to buy the land from the government, illusory transfer of the land. It's also going to sell the land back to the government, at a date that will kick in October 2033. The rental rate. This is the interest rate in reality. It is a fixed rate of 15.75% per annum to be given to the investors every 6 months, to the Sukuk holders, every 6 months, 15.75%. This 15.75% is expressed as a percentage of the Sukuk size. So the amount of Sukuk you buy is going to be the percentage that you get, the total amount the amount that will be given to you will be 15.75% of the total amount of Sukuk that you bought. That tells you it's pure riba transaction. So you loan them the amount that you bought in Sukuk, and they're giving you 15.75% of that amount that you loan them every 6 months, being the lease rental payable by the leasing. The leasing, as we said, is the government. So the next one is periodic distribution. Rental rate of 15.75% per annum, the same thing, of the initial Sukuk amount that you paid. So this is a diagram of how it goes, and you see how very complex a simple transaction of riba. Loan us money, which is bonds. Loan us money, and we'll give you 15.75%, back of how much you loaned us every 6 months for a 10-year period. Simple. We now see the federal government here transfers the right of the land to the SPV, the Sukuk company, named FGN Road Sukuk Company 1. So after transferring it, then where is 2.2? Yeah. Then they sign a forward lease agreement and undertaking. They sign all the documents that they need. That's multiple transactions in one. Then the construction and service agency agreements, that's part of the agreements, that they sign also. Then the Sukuk company declares trust that, okay, we now have Sukuk to, after all the documents have been signed by the federal government, now say we have Sukuk, to sell. Then investors buy the Sukuk, they subscribe. After they subscribe, the money that they get, they give it to this company, and this company that was set up, the Sukuk company, gives it to the government, gives the money to the government as its agents. The government gave the company land for construction of roads, telling the company, go and construct roads for me. The company collected money from investors and gave that money back to the government that I am appointing you as my agent to go and construct the road for me. So so that's number 8. Then when the government has finished constructing the roads within the 10-year period, it will now tell the special purpose company vehicle, the Sukuk company, that we have finished the contractors that you will start with the contractors. They'll say we finished the road. They'll tell the government that. The government will say, okay. They'll tell the special purpose vehicle, that the school company, that we have finished constructing the road that you commissioned us as your agent to construct. And the special purpose vehicle will say, good. So it will turn back to the same government and say, we have constructed the road that you asked us to construct for you. Very twisted. Very twisted. Then, number 10, the roads are not delivered to the government. So the roads are delivered to the government. That's by the end of 2023. But in between that, every 6 months, the government is paying rents to the CBN to give to the investors every 6 months. Now, the trustee, is a special. The trustees are set up to administer that as part of the people that will be on the board of the SPV. So all this diagram is, put down here, allocation of specific sections of land to the Sukuk companies to rehabilitate. The second, the government via the Ministry of Works and Housing and FCTA respectively execute the Ijara contract, the lease contract, the rental contract with the Sukuk company. Then the issuer enters into construction agency agreement with the same government. So the government told it to construct land, is now employing the services of the government to go and construct it. So basically what we just said in the diagrams are the things that are put here. Number 13, at maturity the Sukuk of the Sukuk, the issuer exercises the purchase undertaking and the roads are purchased by the Federal Ministry of Works and the FCTA respectively. So the government buys back that land. Now, even though the land has been improved, if it was land that there wasn't a road on it, there's now a road on it. If it was a defective road, it has now been, upgraded. So value has been added to it. So ordinarily, the price should increase, but no, it won't increase. Nobody will accept these transactions outside of this concoction. So this transaction, so they have a pronouncement that was made by the Sharia board set up by the central bank. They have they're called FARS. They're called FRAS, the Financial Regulators Advisory Council of Experts. So they issued this document, uh, and they signed it. So they say that the Sukuk proceeds, that they've looked at it and they found that it is this Sukuk arrangement, that they looked at it and they found that it is Sharia compliant. FAST approves the structure as being in conformity with the terms and conditions of a forward Ijara contract. Forward Ijara contract means you are paying now, even though the road is not yet ready. So you are paying in advance. Ijara contracts under the Sharia, that it's has been in conformity with terms and conditions of a forward Ijara contract under the Sharia, as well as with the terms and conditions of a sale and purchase contract predicated on unilateral sale and purchase undertaken. So you have people on that board, 7 of them. So it's not by names of people there, rather it's on what the Sharia, says that we've been able to go through. So now risk factors. But there's one important thing to note here that the government uses to absolve itself. It says the sukuk has been structured by financial advisor. That is Buraq. At the beginning, that's Buraq Capital Limited. So they are the financial advisors of the government on this. So it has been structured by a Buraq Capital with expertise in Islamic finance and under the guidance of their Sharia board. So the Sharia board of Buraq Capital is there. And the Ijara structure underpinning the sukuk is widely used and well recognized globally. So that is second premise for putting out this product. And the third premise for putting out this product and saying that it is Sharia compliant is the statement of FRAS that we just looked at, the Sharia Advisory Board of the central bank. So and then they say something here. I think that is okay, good. It's over here. So the sukuk is required to remain Sharia compliant at all times during maturity. However, the presence of different schools of thought in Islamic commercial jurisprudence implies that the sukuk may be considered to be Sharia compliant by some scholars and not to others. So with this, the government absolves, in inverted colon, itself from this transaction and this later statement that it makes in this paragraph. So there's nothing that you want to look for in terms of a verdict in Islam that you won't get by some scholars. There isn't. You will find some scholars that will, back it, and they'll be, highly recognized people. So it's not the names that are important, or rather the meat, the details, and the Sharia position, the hadith, and all that. That's either are for or against the the product that is being offered. So rates of return risk, that is the rental rates, the interest rates in reality, but called the rental rate that the government is going to be given. Said sukuk structures based on fixed annual rates, which is this one is fixed at 15.75%, are exposed to the risk which may adversely affect the price of the sukuk issuance on relevant exchanges. Exchanges are where you can now sell your sukuk certificate. So you can sell your sukuk certificate as you can sell your share certificate, but you cannot sell the underlying assets in this case. All the investors cannot come together and say, we are selling the federal government land that we bought from a federal government, that federal government says is our property. You cannot, because you've already signed another contract selling it to the federal government in 2033. So you do not have abusers. So they're saying over here that there's a risk with this sukuk that you have, which is rate of return risk. And that risk will show in the relevant exchanges. That is, in the places where you can sell your sukuk certificates, which is maybe by Borok Capital, or rather Greenwich Merchant Bank Limited, Stanbic IBTC, Vevita, and all others that may be permitted to sell or trade in the sukuk certificates that you buy. How will it manifest at those exchanges? When market interest rates rise, market interest rate, the CBN from time to time, says how much it will cost you to loan money from a bank. If you loan money, this is how much interest rate you pay. The central bank, fixes it from time to time. They change it or maintain it from time to time. So if it happens that the market interest rates rise, then the value of the value of your fixed income sukuk will drop. Why? Because when interest rates rise, it means that the obligations on those that owe money to their creditors, will now increase. So in order to counter that, the price of that you can sell your sukuk certificate will drop, because the government will still pay 15.75% on it. So for that actual 15.75% to be within what the government can pay, the amount that you pay and that you sell the certificate will be less than it was sold to you before. Anybody coming to that secondary market, the IBTC and all the Stanbic IBTC and all that, to buy a sukuk certificate that was sold by the original investor who bought it from at the first time, that price that they will sell it will now be, lower. And because of that, if you buy it at that lower price, the interest rate that they will give you will be lower than 15.75%. So you are discouraged as an investor from buying it. So meaning there's the real risk is that you won't be able to, in actuality, sell it in a situation where there's increase in interest rate. So when markets interest rates rise, the value of the fixed income sukuk drop. Consequently, the yield, that is the rental rate that the new buyer will now get on the sukuk, may fall below the fixed annual rental rate of 15.75%. If you don't want this to happen, then you hold on to your sukuk certificate, unless the sukuk certificate is held until maturity. So if you don't want that to happen, hold on to your sukuk certificate till 2033. So whatever happens to interest rates does not affect you. So we'll go to the next. So forward Jara contracts, meaning you're paying now for things that are not yet constructed in the case of new roads, or upgrades that have not yet been effected on existing, roads. And the government is paying as a rentee, as a lease for that contract. Then purchase undertaking. This is an agreement that's going to be signed at the beginning, that the government is going to buy back and you are going to sell back the land that the government is selling to you now. So you sign the initial sales contract that the government is selling the land to you. Then you sign the purchase undertaking, which is repurchase of the land from you back. So the sales undertaking that you will sell it to them, purchase undertaking that they will buy it back from you, that same piece of land in 2033. The government says here, when putting out what Nigeria is all about, introduction into Nigeria and all that, overview of Nigeria, said the 2018 Sukuk formed part of the federal government's 2018 borrowing plans. So when you look over here, this Sukuk itself was, set up under the Act of Loans, the Local Loans, Act. And over here, the government is saying clearly that this Sukuk, the second, they started in 2017. So the Sukuk number two, the second round of the Sukuk that they did, was, part of their borrowing plans. And they said as at December 2022, um, they had gotten these billions, has been realized, from the issuance of Sukuk, and it accounts for 3.34% of the FGN's domestic debts. So debt stock. So they agree that it is a borrowing plan and it is a debt. So they are borrowed from you and they'll pay you back. So if there's any doubt anywhere, the government itself is clarifying this. What they've done is to borrow from you. They considered it as part of their debts when they are looking at their debts. How much they got in 2022 constitute from Sukuk that they offered, consider 3.34% of the total debt that they owe you. And they will pay you back. For people who invested in 2022, in 2032, they'll pay them back what they got then. For people who are investing in 2023, they will pay back in 2033 what they owe them, the 150 billion. They will pay them back. But in between, they will pay them an interest of 15.75%. That they call a rental rate. And they put the mask of ijara, rental, that rental of their own property that they are the ones actually developing, that. So beyond the purpose of the SPV being, set up to be owned by the investors and seeing to their interests, you begin to ask, what other purpose is that SPV serving? It was directed by the government to, to construct roads, but he gave that task back to the government and paid the government to do that via the monies that the investors, paid. Now, so with that, the Nigeria is part of the OIC. And in talking about Sukuk Alijara, that the government, which is one, not the only contract, one of the multiple contracts that is involved in this Sukuk is called Sukuk Ijara, but it is more multiple transactions as we've seen. One of the points that the OIC, the FIC Council of the Organization of Islamic Councils put forth is that the issuer or manager of the Sukuk Al-Ijara should not guarantee the principal or return of the Sukuk. Here, the government is guaranteeing that in 2033, if you bought the Sukuk in 2023, in 2033, you'll get your 150 billion back. And in between, the returns are also guaranteed, the 15.75%. So it's riba. And in cases of total or partial damage of the leased asset, the loss has to be borne by the sukuk holders. Nothing of that is happening here also. Because if they are the owner, then whatever happens that was not, damage brought about by the government or anything like that, that they should be borne. So if you rent a house, for instance, and you didn't damage the house, maybe an earthquake happened or, there was shooting in the area and, some of the bullets damaged the windows or something like that. You as the renter, the leasee, are not responsible for that. It is the landlord that is to pay that. So if the investors are truly the landlords, then they should bear all this, but none of that is that. This is the website of the Awqaf, the Ministry of Islamic Affairs of the country of Qatar. And so islamicweb.net. And the question here is about Hukm Shira al-Bank حكم شراء البنك أرض الأرض من المالك ثم تأجيرها له إجارة منتهية بالتمليك. So what is the ruling on a bank buying land from someone who owns that land and then renting it to the owner, back to the owner of the one who owned that land in an arrangement where at the end of the rental period, the owner will come back to being the owner of the land. So a man owns land. The bank comes and buys that land from him. That land that they bought from him, they now leased it. They now leased it back to him for a period of time. After he finishes with the rental payments, you will become the owner of that land again. This is exactly like the situation of the sukuk that the FGN, is offering. So over here, because of time, we won't go through everything. This is the question. The answer, it says, Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. فالذي فهمناه من السؤال أن البنك يشتري منك الأرض. What we understand from your question is that the bank will buy from you the land, أو بعضها, or parts of the land. ومن ثم يؤجر لك الأرض. And after that, they will rent the land to you. إجارة منتهية بتمليك. In a lease arrangement that will end in you owning the land, lease to own agreement. They acted mustaqil, or it's an independent, contract. In the intiha act al-ijara, after the initial contract or rental contract has expired. So you have a rental, contract, you have a sale contract, that is happening, there. They purchase the land, one contract. You lease the land, another contract. Then they sell back the land, another contract. وإذا كان كذلك, if what we understood is correct, ففي هذا العقد شبهة ببيع العينة المنهي عنه. If what we understand is correct, then in this transaction is a semblance to bay al-aina, which we started out with, a form of trying to mask riba, which is al-manhiyu anhu, which is prohibited by the Sharia. So, since the verdict has already been given and we're out of time, we won't go into further details on that, but anyone can read that. And so finally, we see that this transaction that we looked at from the FGN has multiple transactions in one. Two transactions in one is prohibited. This one has multiple transactions in one. That's Bayul Aina. The roads go back to the original owner. So it's the transfer of that road is just a placeholder, an illusionary transfer. Number three, it is instant. If we were to do instant Bayul Aina, like the example we gave, sell me your phone right now and I'll sell it back to you immediately. Nobody will go into that type of transaction. But if I say, okay, let us do it with a time difference in between, and in that time difference, one of us is going to get benefit. Either I rent it to you or you rent it to me. Then the one who will benefit will be interested in engaging in that same, transaction of sell to me now, I sell it to you, back. But once it's not instant, then it'll be favorable. That is riba. Number four, the FGS states that this is part of its borrowing plan, as we just looked at. Number five, 15.75% of the investments is what they said they'll give you back. It's clearly stated, 15% of the sukuk value that you bought, or the sukuk amount that you bought. Number six, the sukuk, when you want to sell your sukuk certificate in the secondary market, that you want to resell it, you bought it anew when they were offering the sukuk, and now want to sell it via the exchange, any of the companies that are offering for sale, that will buy it from you, help you, sell it. Then once that you want to sell, when the CBN, Central Bank, has increased rates, then it will be at a loss for you, and also be at a loss for the one who buys it from you, because the government, the government and the sukuk company will not be offering 15.75% to that person. They'll be offering at lower rates in that case. So if it is not riba, why is it affected by riba? Is the question. Then finally, placeholders that will not be accepted in other transactions. Yes, this transaction is filled with a lot of placeholders that if you were to apply to other transactions and say, come and develop this land for me, but on the condition that the money you give it to me, the money that will give, the money for the development, you give it to me, and you tell me to go and get developers that would actually develop the land. Nobody will do that. They say, so what's my job? So inshallah, we'll stop here. I hope it's clear. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.